I can remember as clear as day playing Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. It was 2010 and I was excited to finally get my hands on a Final Fantasy MMO. I was a bit too young to play Final Fantasy XI at the time it came out, and let's be honest, my mom was not gonna pay for a subscription for me. The best option I had at the time was like RuneScape. And so when I finally got Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, what did I get? Well, you could say what I received was an exceptional experience. Exceptionally bad. So bad, in fact, that Square Enix had to literally apologize for the game. No, seriously, in a world where Dirge of Cerberus and all the bravest exist, this is the first Final Fantasy game so bad that Square Enix had to apologize for it. There are some other titles I want an apology for, but we'll leave it there. Flash forward to today, and Final Fantasy XIV is the complete opposite, with a large number of people calling it one of the best Final Fantasy games of all time. And with that, it's recently been announced that Final Fantasy XIV is the most profitable Final Fantasy game in the entire series, a title that was previously held by Final Fantasy XI, and before it, Final Fantasy VII. And currently the game sits at 24 million players. Now, to put this in perspective, Final Fantasy XIV had a player count of 4 million in 2015. That then rose to 10 million with the release of the expansion Stormblood in 2017. And then over the course of the next 4 years, that number would double. Director and producer Naoki Yoshida having this to say on the matter, quote, "It's perhaps unbecoming of me to say, but in terms of our business, we've been able to achieve great success. Moving forward, we're going to spare no expense with our investments to ensure that this game continues to be one which our players can enjoy." Good to know that all of that money isn't just going into their pockets, but is going to be reinvested back into the game. Now, I personally could think of a few ways in which they could reinvest that money. For example, a long-demanded graphical remastering of the game. And I really don't mean redo all of the models or anything extreme like that. I literally just mean put some HD textures on the characters and particularly on the hair. Yoshida, I know that you have money now. I should not be able to count the pixels in Alphinaud's hair. Yeah, how about you get that boy off Reddit and slap some HD textures on him? Adding some sliders to our cheeks, and no, I am not talking about the ones on our faces. And yes, for both male and female characters. This has been demanded for a long time. We are tired of looking at our characters' back end and seeing some flapjacks. A Realm Reborn has not aged the best. In fact, it's the most rough around the edges. If you really want to reinvest, then I think reworking some areas of A Realm Reborn's presentation could go a long way, especially to retaining those new players, as A Realm Reborn is often seen as the filter. And while after A Realm Reborn, the subsequent expansions offer some of the best Final Fantasy experiences out there, the fact that people have to get filtered by the base game means that it could probably use some work. Things such as adding more voice acting and re-recording some of the existing voice acting would be a fantastic way for you to reinvest some of that money. Though ultimately, I think the success of Final Fantasy XIV lies with this statement, with Yoshida saying, quote, "From our perspective in the 14 team, we don't think of players as just players. We really look at them as our friends and part of our family. We're in this game together." And ultimately, that's been the lasting appeal of Creative Business Unit 3 as a team. It feels like you're going through all of this with them, that you're on the journey right next to them, that through all of the trials and tribulations that they go through, you're part of the team as well. In the way they interact with the fans, pay attention to what those fans are saying, and deeply try to meet all of our desires, even when they're seemingly impossible. It built a lasting connection, and one that I've never had with the development team as a fan. And it's a journey that I'll be staying on for Endwalker and beyond. Shout out to patron Squall UA and the rest of the Ultima community.